we'll start from where we have left. We have left at aphorism 92. So we'll start from aphorism 93. I think we will do around, we will do up till aphorism 100 today. We'll complete 100 aphorisms today, because after that, it will be around about this. Just a minute. Okay. Because after 100, the case taking or the understanding of epidemic fevers or epidemics will start. So we will do it next time. We will not do it today. But today we will do about what are the more points which we can ask in the case taking in the chronic diseases. What are the fine things which we have to look for, like the accessory symptoms. So those things which we will discuss today. So let's start with aphorism 93. ऋषभ स्क्रीन हो रही है शेयर?
Yes, sir.
Okay. So if the disease has been brought on a short time, or in the case of a chronic affection, a considerable time previously by some obvious cause, then the patient or his friends, when questioned privately, will mention it either spontaneously or when carefully interrogated. So this thing is about some kind of cause. There has been some obvious cause. You know, when you're taking the case, you're getting some symptoms. Like recently, I had uh, a male patient who was having some problems, some joint pain and some backache and something like this. His wife was already taking medicine from me from past 1 year. She had this cellulitis in the eye, because of which the eye had to be operated, the eye had to be removed, and then it has started on the other side of the eye. So she came to me at that time when the inflammatory process started on the other side of the eye. So this gave me some, because I was asking her that, any kind of uh, infections or any kind of some things which you had. So she said she denied it completely. So, but I had this thing in my mind that there is some syphilitic process, and that she has been contracted with that miasm. So because of those symptoms, because of that understanding, I was giving her an anti-syphilitic treatment, which was doing good on her. She was getting better by it. So recently, 2 months back, his husband came to me for the medication and everything, and there were some few symptoms which pointed into that direction. Some that kind of eruptions, the tendency of that kind of eruptions. So in those cases, when there is something going in your mind when you're taking the case, when you're looking at the case, you know that there is some obvious cause for this thing. So we have to ask those questions. The patients or the attendants, they will be more comfortable answering those things in private, when there is no one else in the room. So even in private, when you are asking them, either they will spontaneously tell you about it, or you have to very carefully interrogate it. Like the earlier patient, the first one, the husband of that lady, when I asked him privately that, did you had any kind of extramarital affair, or you have gone to places, did you had any kind of this relationship, or so he denied it first. But then I kept on asking and asking, and he said that, okay, I had a friend, there was this girl, but I never got physically uh, related to her, but I was not ready to accept it. So recently he was uh, because you can see that that there is this embarrassment in the eyes and embarrassment on the face when you are asking that question. So you get that you get your answer. So recently what happened, that he was applying for visa to some country, and there was this mandatory medical checkup which he had to go through. So when he did, he tested positively for syphilis. So there are many things, the kind of questions which the patients are embarrassed about. We have to very carefully interrogate it. We have to very carefully ask about it. But then there many times the patients, they will not, because in some countries, like the countries which are open, like in the Western countries, they tell you very frankly about these things. But in India, especially in India, the people, they don't come out with these kind of answers very easily. So you have to, tactfully see through those kind of things. So footnote to aphorism 93: any causes of a disgraceful character which the patient or his friends do not like to confess, at least not voluntarily, the physician must endeavor to elicit by skillfully framing his questions or by private information. So there are many things which the patient might feel, or the attendants might feel, that these things are very disgraceful to tell. So out of, that kind of humiliation or embarrassment, they do not give voluntary information to those things. So it is, again, it falls on the physician to how to skillfully, frame the questions or tell them about the importance of this information, or from their body language try to understand whether it is a yes or a no thing. you know to these belong poisoning or attempted suicides, like the people who has attempted suicides or who has tried to poison themselves. They, or their even attendants, they will, not tell about this thing very openly. Onanism, masturbation, indulgence in ordinary or unnatural debauchery, some kind of sexual practices, or excesses in wine or cordials or punch. These are the drinks. And some people, they have this habit, or they are taking it a lot, and other ardent beverages or coffee. Any kind of overindulgence in eating. Many times people who eat a lot, or they are also humiliated if, they feel embarrassed, they feel bad about telling these kind of things. Or in some particular food of a hurtful character, or they are taking some, like some tobacco or something, like this. Any kind of overindulgence on smoking. In the past, if they had some venereal diseases, some sexually transmitted diseases, or itch, some kind of unfortunate love, the people, they don't openly confess to these things. Jealousy, domestic infelicity, unhappiness, some kind of unhappiness in the home, from the wife, from the husband, some kind of worry, grief on the account of some family misfortune. There was some misfortune in the family, there was some unfortunate thing which happened in the family. Ill usage, bad usage of something, borrowed revenge. Okay, there was this desire to take revenge which was not taken. Some injured pride, some embarrassment of a pecuniary nature. Pecuniary means related to money. There was some financial embarrassment, like someone had to pay off a loan, he could not pay that off. That kind of embarrassments. Some superstitious fears, some kind of hunger or an imperfection in the private parts. This is again something which most of the people, they don't divulge. Many times in the females also, like they are not happy with their body structure. So, the but because these kind of causes, they're always there. The thing with your body, whatever you are feeling, when you are looking at the body, if someone is obese, someone is slim, someone is lean, does not have proper, we are always, the body is always with us. So any kind of imperfection we feel in ourselves, this is always going to be there. That causation is always going to be there. So all these questions can be asked in private, to the patient privately, or to the attendants, that do they think like this, or do you feel like this. So after that voluntary information, when the voluntary information is given by the patient, by the attendant, and we have taken, asked the question, and the voluntary information is given, now is the time for those answers which the patient does not give voluntarily. a rupture, a prolapse, or so forth. So while inquiring into the state of chronic diseases, the particular circumstances of the patient with regard to his ordinary occupations. Now, next part is that when we are inquiring into the chronic disease, like I always say that we have to understand the patient in his surroundings. How the patient reacts, how the patient is behaving. It might be something odd for us because we have a different kind of circumstance. But in his surroundings, in his circumstances, how he is doing. So we have to understand the patient in his circumstances. So to know his circumstances, we have to ask about his occupation, his usual mode of living, how is his domestic situations, how is his domestic relations, how does he function socially, how he is around his family, his friends. So all, because all these things, they, for example, there is this patient, one patient. I always ask about his job. How is the job going? He's a very honest person, very decent, very honest person. But he is in a department which is most dishonest, which is most dishonest. There is so much of corruption, there is so much of bribes going on. So now this person is basically in these kind of circumstances. He has a strong will, he has not bent to the demands of the job, but it is taking toll on him. And because it is a government job, he does not want to lose the job or go away from the job. So this job is taking a toll on him. So when we understand the patient in his circumstances, in his surroundings, then we get a more clear picture. Like if I can understand that, okay, the whole department is like this and this person is like this, I can understand that he is a man of principle and strong will. So he's not a man who will be yielding easily, who will be afraid, or so he's a courageous person who's dealing with these kind of circumstances in his own way. So I get a behavior, I get an understanding of the disposition of the patient, his usual mode of living, how he lives, what he eats, what he prefers, his domestic situations, how are the situations at the family, his job situations, and so forth, must be well considered and scrutinized to ascertain what there is in them that may tend to produce or to maintain disease. Because, like we have done in Aphorism 7, that once you have cured the patient, it is also it falls on us to tell him that what was the things which were making you diseased and to remain away from them. Or if there is a disease, the medicine is right, still there are symptoms coming again and again, so you have to tell them that don't do these things because they will maintain the disease or produce the disease, so that in order that by their removal the complete recovery may be promoted. So we have to tell them that don't do these things. These are the things which are making you sick. In chronic disease of females, it is especially necessary to pay attention to pregnancy, sterility, sexual desires, accouchments mean delivery when they are delivering the child, miscarriages, suckling, and the state of the menstrual discharge. So in females, we have to ask about the pregnancies, any kind of difficulties in the pregnancy, or sterility, if some female she is not able to bear a child, or miscarriages, or sucklings, or their sexual desires, and how is the state of menstrual discharge. With respect to the last named, more particularly regarding the menstrual discharge, we should not neglect to ascertain if it reoccurs as to short intervals or is delayed beyond the proper time. Whether the menses they are coming in short intervals, the time is short, or it is prolonged, how many days it lasts, whether it flows, whether its flow is continuous or interrupted flow, coming and going, that kind of flow. What is its general quantity? How dark is its color? Whether there is leukorrhea, whites before, its appearance or after its termination, because in many females, leukorrhea is an accompaniment with the menstrual complaints, even in between also, but it is an accompaniment which comes. But especially what bodily or mental ailments, what sensations and pains it is preceded, accompanied or followed, how she is generally affected by menstrual discharges, how she is generally affected. That is what we need to understand, what we need to know. If there is leukorrhea, what is its nature, what sensations attend its flow, in what quantity it is, and what are the conditions and occasions under which it occurs. So first about the menstrual discharge and then about the leukorrhea. Menses and leukorrhea, they basically belong to the genitals of the females, because when these things happen, it is not only one part, only genitals which are affected, the whole female is affected by it. The mind, the body, everything is affected by it. So these are considered as the genitals. So these are the physical genitals which can tell us about the patient. If there is something to, because menses and leukorrhea is something which the once the menarche starts, all those things, whatever is happening, it is happening from so long time. Why Dr. Hahnemann has specifically told about this thing, to ask about this thing, is because the females, they become accustomed to some symptoms, some kind of pain, some kind of mental state during the this thing. For example, I will give you an example. There was this lady who came to me for around 2 years, and I was giving her medicines again and again for something. She was suffering from rheumatoid arthritis, and I was giving her medicines which were, partially acting on her again and again. And I was very much, sometimes there are some patients whom you really want to give comfort, and you can, and the patient also believes in you that you can, but somehow there is always something missing, and the medicine is, you're not getting to that medicine. So that was the case with her. She was so much, she had so much belief in me, and I was also doing my best with whatever I can. And somewhere, you start thinking that why is she not going away? Why she keeps on coming? She's not getting better. She's, some medicine makes her partially better, and then, so obviously, because you there is this time when you think that she should go to some other doctor. You cannot say it, but because she's having so much faith in you, the patient is a, but you feel inside for her that she's not getting better, she should. So that was a state when this thing. So I finally, like I told this time, that when you are not getting, this state comes, because I learned from these cases that what you need to do. So whatever symptoms I was prescribing on the whole case taking, I just kept it aside, that I'm not, the first thing was that I am not going to prescribe on any of these symptoms which I know. I need to find out something new. I'm not going to prescribe on this. So I started asking. I started asking about her this menstrual cycle and leukorrhea and everything this. So she started telling me that whenever the periods are going to start, 3 or 4 days earlier, he started forgetting a lot. So this was a very, I said, you never mentioned this thing. She said that I think this is a common character with me. My mother also had this thing. So because of that, she thought that it was a common thing, the people might forget. So these kind of symptoms, for us, it is a very characteristic thing, this forgetfulness before menses. But for her, because she said that my mother also had this thing, so she believed it to be something which is natural, which is okay. Then I'm having this thing from past 20 years, so she was okay with it. So these kind of symptoms, they sometimes remain hidden. So for that, we have to ask so many things sometimes, especially in these things, because the next aphorism 95 is on this thing only, the accessory symptoms. So in chronic diseases, the investigation of the signs of disease above mentioned and all the others must be pursued as carefully and circumstantially as possible. So all these symptoms have to be investigated very, very carefully. And the most minute peculiarities, this red color is done by me. This is not in the organ, but this has been done by me so that we can understand the part. The most minute peculiarities, the peculiarities which are very minute, so minute that the patient does not feel that to be some kind of symptom, must be attended to. Why? Partly because in these diseases they are the most characteristic and least resemble those of the acute diseases. And these peculiarities are not that kind of peculiarities which come, minute peculiarities which come in acute diseases, which we can ignore away. And if a cure is to be effected, they cannot be too accurately noted. Partly because the patients become so used to their long sufferings that they pay little or no heed to the lesser accessory symptoms. The patient has been suffering, or that has been a part of the body of the patient from so long that they don't care about that symptom. No heed to the lesser accessory symptom. They don't pay any attention to the symptoms, which are often very pregnant with meaning, very characteristic symptoms, often very useful in determining the choice of remedy. So because these symptoms have always been the part of the patient. They have always been, right from the beginning, right from the childhood, right from the menarche, right from the teenage. They have always been the part of patient system. They have always been the part of that sura, very characteristic part. But because they have been suffering from that from so long, so somewhere the patient starts feeling that it is me. But okay, it is, like someone who is, having diarrhea in the morning from childhood. And now he's 35, 40 years old. He will not tell that the first motion which comes in the morning is a very loose motion. It's like a diarrhea. They will not mention it. When we ask about the characteristic of the stool, if we ask them that, okay, do you pass the stool? You will say yes. Okay. If we stop there, that information is gone. We have to ask that what kind of stool it is. Is it a formed stool? It is a diarrhea, or it is a hard stool. What kind of stool it is? Then he will mention that it is like a loose stool every day. But if we get that information that every day, we can think about remedies which have that morning diarrheas. We can think about sulfur. We can think about some other remedies. And regard them almost as a necessary part of their condition. They have always noted that this is a part of my condition. It is part of me, almost as health. They don't take it as a diseased symptom. They don't take it as a diseased phenomena. The real feeling of which they have well nigh forgotten in their sometimes 15 or 20 years of suffering. They have forgotten that thing in the so long suffering. And they can scarcely bring themselves to believe that these accessory symptoms, these greater or less deviations from the healthy state, can have any connection with their principal malady. And they will not believe that these symptoms are important. I don't feel that this is an important thing. They don't, because they are looking at those symptoms as health. My mother had this, I'm having this. So this is not something which is, uh, a disease thing. Many times the people whose father had some kind of itching on the leg, or their grandfather had, they will not even tell about that itching. One of my patients, he had dermatitis on the legs. He was taking medicine from me for 8 to 9 months. And he mentioned that itching after 8 to 9 months, because at that, in that weather, it got aggravated. So they don't think of these things as an unhealthy state. They have been part of them. But these are very important because they are very characteristic. They have always been part of them. They have always been the part of disease. They have that characteristic thing which can tell us about the sora. But we can only get them when we are going into that minutest of the details of everything. Then only we can get those things. If we are just taking the case superficially, then we will always miss those things. So always look for these accessory symptoms if you find them. One of the patients, again the same with that as it was with that lady. He was taking the medicine. He had this kidney disease, some uh, autoimmune kidney disease, and he was taking medicine from so long, and you would get better, get worse, get better, get worse, like this. Then one fine day I started again like this, I started asking about the perspiration and this, and then he said that usually I don't get perspiration. He said I have this perspiration which is very profuse. It does not smell, it does not stain, it is on the head, and it is profuse whenever it is, like. So I said that, okay, when do you perspire more? He said, when I am eating food. I said, again, it is a very characteristic thing. Eating food, yes. He said, I only perspire this much when I'm eating food. I said, when the food is chilly, like it has more spices or something like this. He said, no, even normal food, even without spices, without this thing, like, he said that when there is uh, some religious celebration in the house, we make this food without spices. So even if I eat that food, I start perspiring. So again, a very characteristic symptom, but because it has been always the part of the patient, he never mentioned it. He never described it. So beside this, patients themselves differ so much in their dispositions that some, especially the so-called hypochondriacs and the other persons of great sensitiveness and impatient of suffering, portray their symptoms in too vivid colors, and in order to induce the physician to give them relief, describe their ailments in exaggerated expressions. So then there is this class of patients who are hypochondriacs, who are who are very sensitive to the sufferings. They are very impatient to get better. So sometimes they describe their expression in an exaggerated sense. I always give this example that, this pain is something which cannot be measured. There is no scale for the pain. It is always a subjective feeling. Like we ask the pain, okay, someone got a prick here in the hand. If you ask one person, okay, out of 1 of 10, how much pain you are feeling, you will say 2 or 3 at the max. To the other person, you give this prick, you will ask someone like Chamomilla or Nux that how much pain is there. He said, oh, 9, 9, 10, 11, 11. It's the same prick. So the pain is basically noted or described because of the sensitivity of the patient. So the people who have more sensitivity, they will exaggerate the expression so that the physician becomes serious about it, to give them relief. So what needs to be done in these kind of patients? Footnote, a pure fabrication of symptoms and sufferings will never be met within hypochondriacs. The thing with hypochondriacs is that they are not feigners. They don't feign the disease. They don't fabricate. They don't make the symptoms. There are symptoms which they feel to be very much painful. The way they tell those symptoms, that way is exaggerated, that expression is exaggerated, but they are suffering. There are symptoms. A comparison of the sufferings. Now, how we can see is, even in the most impatient of them, even the most impatient hypochondriacs, they will not fabricate the symptoms, which can be seen. How we can see this? A comparison of the sufferings they complain of at various times, when the physician gives them nothing at all or something quite unmedicinal, proves this plainly. When you give them placebo, when you give them SL, their symptoms remain like this. Same. The people who are feigning, or the people who are into that, state, some kind, they will start getting better. because they wanted the attention of the physician. They wanted him to change the remedy. They wanted him to give some remedy. So as soon as you give them the SL or placebo, they will start getting better. So this proves this plainly. But in hypochondriacs, the symptoms are there. Yes, they are exaggerated. The patient himself is very sensitive. Their expression is, very violent kind of. But the symptoms are there. Proves this plainly. But we must deduct something from their exaggeration. What we can understand from their exaggeration is that at all events ascribe the strong character of their expressions to their excessive sensibility, in which case this very exaggeration of their expressions when talking of their ailments become of itself an important symptom in the list of feature of which the portrait of the disease is composed. So this feature being hypochondriac, the way they are expressing this excessive sensibility, this excessive sensitivity towards the pain, towards the suffering, this in itself become a very important symptom. We cannot give them the remedy which are not expressive or which are more controlling of themselves, which are, we cannot give all those remedies. We cannot give those remedies which are indifferent to the pain, which are more bearing, more strong willed. We cannot give them. So this itself becomes an important symptom. The case is different with insane persons and rascally feigner, dishonest feigners of the disease, who are just feigning the disease to get an attention. So in those cases, if you give the SL, if you give the placebo, they will start getting better. The symptoms will start getting better. So from there, we can see that this is not a hypochondriac patient, but more of a feigner or more of a attention-seeking person. Other individuals of an opposite character. Now, there are hypochondriacs, and then there are completely other people, you know, other individuals of an opposite character. However, partly from indolence, either they are indolent to tell the things, that he's asking so much. If I answer, he will ask more. So they are indolent. Partly from false modesty. They don't want to disappoint the doctor. They don't want to, you know, how are you? Yes, yes, everything is good. Good, good, doctor. We have come to you now, so there is no problem. Everything is good. So they don't want to upset the physician. So from that false modesty, from that false kind of humility, humbleness, they will not tell the problems properly. Partly from kind of mildness of the disposition. Sometimes the people are mild. Sometimes the doctor, if asks in a tone like this, how are you? So, because of the mildness or some timidity, they will, become afraid. Yes, I'm good. I'm good. Yes, everything is good. Or from weakness of mind, they are not able to understand. They don't understand that these symptoms are important. Many times, when you ask the patient, okay, how is your appetite? It is good, it is good. I just have these problems. My appetite is okay. So they don't understand that the kind of appetite is, the symptoms we need. That we are not asking about his appetite as a problem. We just want to know how his journals are. So from that kind of weakness of the mind, they will not mention, they cannot describe the aggravations or ameliorations. So they don't give you much history. These kind of individuals, they are quite opposite to the hypochondriac patient. Refrain from mentioning a number of their symptoms or describe them in vague terms. Not in very clearly description of the symptom is not given, or allege some of them to be of no consequence. Like I told you that it is of no consequence. It has nothing to do with my disease. But they need to understand that these symptoms are important for us to find a remedy. So many times we have to work on the patients before even starting the case. That whatever this we are asking you so that we can find a remedy out of thousands of remedies, which is basically similar to your behavior and to your, because this is the causation of the disease. So until unless we go for the causation of the disease, we don't cure that thing, the disease will keep coming. So we have to spend some time, 10-15 minutes, to make them understand. the importance of this thing, case taking. Now, as certainly as we should listen particularly to the patient's description of his sufferings and sensations and attach credence, especially to his own expressions, wherewith he endeavors to make us understand his ailments. So, Dr. Hanaman is saying that we have to certainly give this, like I was talking on the when we started this thing, case taking, that the subjective symptoms are important, because the subjective symptoms only the feeling of the patient, the suffering and the sensations which he's feeling, that can be only told by the patient. It cannot be told by the friends, it cannot be told by the attendants. So we have to also keep a note. If some attendant is saying that his headache is like bursting headache, he cannot say that thing. He does not know about that thing, whether it is bursting, whether it is pulsating, you know. So we have to be very careful, we have to be very uh, aware that from where we are getting the information. Subjective symptoms cannot be taken from the attendants, they don't know about it. They can tell their experience with the patient, they can tell about what they feel, what they see, but they cannot tell what the patient sees or feels. So subjective information has to come from the subject. That is the only way. Even as a physician, I cannot understand the feeling or I cannot guess it. So that will be a guesswork. There are some doctors who do this thing, and I always tell some the students or wherever I go that don't fall for those things. They look amazing, but they are not at all of practice. Like many doctors, they nowadays there are some schools who are telling the students or the doctors to prescribe on the delusions, that the delusion is a state of mind, a feeling of a mind. I came to know about their one of such case, that there was this lady who had this uh, cerebral palsy child, and then she had two child before that cerebral palsy child who were normal. So she belonged to uh, she was not very good financially, the family was not very good financially, they are laborers, they do work at with a daily wage. So with that, she's upbringing the children, she's going to her job and doing that hard work and taking care of the child. So this doctor who was going to prescribe, he said that her feeling, uh, I cannot remember, sorry, that she's feeling uh, wretched, that her delusion is that so he took the rubric delusion, wretched she is, because she's suffering so much. In her class, that class of that economic class, everyone is suffering, everyone is suffering. But taking this kind of delusion and then prescribing on that thing, okay, everyone who is standing around that doctor, the student, they go into a state of awe. Wow. But what she's feeling, she can only tell. How can I say how she's feeling? Even right now, what I am feeling, no one can tell that thing. That is a subjective thing. If I say that I feel wretched, so even then I have to understand the patient in that circumstances, like in the Organon is told. Understand the circumstances of the patient. That yes, in that economic class, with that thing, everyone is feeling that thing. So everyone is the same remedy. No, how it can be? Delusion has to come from a state of delusion when it is not a reality. That is the reality of that economic class. Delusion is something that I am doing very good, but still I have that state, like Bryony or Suriname. That state of poverty, although having so much of money. But So delusion is something unreal. Her reality is that she is suffering. That is the reality of the patient, of the person. So making these kind of assumptions have taken, this is basically a very dishonest representation of the case. And it only demoralizes the doctors and the students because they are not going to get results by this way. Obviously not going to get results. But that demoralizes that, oh, I'm maybe there is some problem with me. No, there is no problem with the student. I always tell that you don't have any problem. Even your teachers, if they are not, able to tell you the right thing, it is not their problem. The problem was the guidance which was given to them. That was the problem. The problem was what was told, the knowledge which was shared. So never, even there are some students who are here along with the doctors. So I always tell you that never, don't take it that there is some problem with you. No, you just have to go and try to understand the things in a right way. They're very clearly written that the suffering and the sensations of the patient can only be told by the patient. So that is the only source of subjective information. Because in the mouths of his friend and attendants, they are usually altered and erroneously stated. Friends and attendants are the second source which can tell, but the subjective symptoms, the sensation, the sufferings of the patient, they will be altered, they will be erroneously, mm, wrongly stated. Physician is the third source, even after the attendants. So if the second source is erroneous, how can the third source be right about this thing? So any subjective symptoms, when you are writing it down, don't write it from yourself. Don't, you know, guess it. Let it come. If it comes, good. If it does not come, even then it is good. Something else will come. So certainly, on the other hand, in all diseases, but especially in the chronic ones, the investigation of the true complete picture and its peculiarities. So whenever we are investigating the true picture, that is why there are false pictures of the chronic diseases. The case taking, which will be done, like I told you, in an erroneous way, in an altered way, in a wrong way, that will not be a true picture of the disease. So when we have to investigate the true picture, we have this desire to go and know the truth of the disease or the picture of the disease. Then there are some peculiarities and there are some demands from the physician. To get a true picture, there are some things which are required of the physician that physician has to remember whenever he or she is taking the case. What are those demands? Complete picture and peculiarities demands special circumspection. The first thing is circumspection. What is circumspection? It is carefulness. Being very careful what I am taking, whether I am taking it right or in a wrong way. And unwilling to take risks. Unwilling to guess. Unwilling to speculate that this is the thinking of the patient. So we have, for the first point for that true investigation is to be circumspect, very careful that whatever I am taking is as it is told by the patient. Then tact, skill, you know, try, the same question should be, you have to have ways of asking the same question in different ways. The same question has to be repeated again and again in different ways, but not in the same language, not in the same way, but different ways. Knowledge of human nature. What is the human nature usually? How the ego behaves. Like we have talked about this thing in the recent uh, workshop on observation, when we have talked about that, the shadow theory, and about this pain and pleasure theory principles. So we have to understand how the human nature basically works. We are human nature. When we look at ourselves, how our nature is working, how we are, throwing our bad, what we think to be the bad qualities into a shadow, and trying to project something. So we must know about the human nature. We can understand human nature more better on us, how we are reacting. That is why I always say, because it is a requisite, it is what is demanded. We have started with the Organon recently, but I have been telling this thing from so many, whenever I have gone anywhere, I have always told that try to understand yourself, because the more you understand yourself, the more you will understand about the human nature. You are human nature, and understanding that thing is basically a requisite. That will make you more observant about the things. You can understand why the patient is reacting in this way, why the patient is behaving in this way, why he is not telling me something, why he is telling me something, or what he is telling through certain signs of his body. And even Dr. Hanuman says that it is a very, very important to know about the human nature. Caution in conducting the inquiry. What kind of questions I have to ask, what I should not ask, or the way I should not ask. Like the direct question should never be asked, where the answer is yes or no. Those kind of things should not be asked. Some questions should be asked privately. Some questions the patient will be more easy or more willing to tell when there are two or three people there. So that kind of caution, that kind of tact we have to develop, and patience in an eminent degree. Impatience is a bad thing in a physician. It has to be very, very, physician has to be very, very, very patient while taking the case, in prescribing, in an eminent degree, in the highest degree. The patience should be there. Although we call the patient a patient, because he has to be patient, with the suffering. But on the other hand, the physician has to be very patient. Because if you are in hurry, then you will miss all the information. You will take the patient where you want to take him. If you have lycopodium in your mind, you will take the patient to the lycopodium. Okay, you like hot food? Yes, everyone likes hot food. Okay, so we will take the patient towards that kind of thing. If there are patients sitting outside and you are in a pressure, okay, I have to see very fast, very fast. That will impact the result. That will, if you think that today you are in a hurry, tell the patient to come, give some other time. Tell them to come in the evening, tell them to come tomorrow. Because when an inquiry is to be done, the inquiry is being done to find out the true picture of the disease. That we have to keep in mind. If we can find the true picture of the disease, we can find the right remedy. So all these things, they have to be there for a good physician to find out the true picture of the disease. Aphorism 99. On the whole, the investigation of acute diseases, or of such as have existed but a short time, is much the easiest for the physician, because all the phenomena and deviations from the health that has been but recently lost are still fresh in the memory of the patient and his friends. So the investigation of acute disease is more easy. Why? Because the phenomena has started recently. Whatever deviations, whatever the symptoms in the health have come, they are very much fresh in the patient's memory and in the memory of his attendants. Still continue to be novel and striking. Now I have seen many, I just want to add something which I have noticed. I have met many physicians, many students who have become physicians also now, many physicians otherwise also. Some physicians, they're very good or they're better in prescribing in chronic diseases. And there are some physicians who are better in prescribing in acute diseases. Like one of my colleague, he is good in prescribing in chronic diseases. But he always say that, whenever there is something acute, I cannot find the remedy. I cannot find the right remedy. Many times he will call me, or many times he will, send the patient to me that, okay, you have a look at him. So I started thinking about, and then these aphorisms, the thing is that we have to switch gears between a chronic case and between, if a person, when, for example, an acute case has come, from 2-3 days, something has started. So, like what I find in that one of my colleagues, that he will start taking the case from the whole point of view and will start searching for the symptoms, or even in the acute part, he will keep asking for what symptoms, this thing and this thing and that thing and that thing. That is not to be done in the acute cases. That is the mistake. Then you will get confused. Recent phenomena, whenever it has started, just take the case from that point onwards. Whatever you find, 2 symptoms, 3 symptoms characteristic, just prescribe on those symptoms. Then there are many people who are like this, they have this, they don't have many, one of my students, he does not have much patience, he prescribes very quickly. So he does thing very good in acute, but not in chronic ones, because chronic case taking or investigation, it requires time. It requires the patient, because you have to have a mind which can go through that maze which has been created from so many years and then find out something. So the people who are impatient, or the physician who is impatient or does not have, is not laborious, he does not have this thing about, that I cannot put so much effort in that thing, they basically don't do good in prescribing in chronic diseases. So we have to be both way. We have to be, malleable according to the circumstances. If there is an emergency case, the patient is not going to have much time. We cannot sit for 1 hour, 2 hour taking his case. We have to change the gears. We have to adapt accordingly. Aphorism 3, we have to adapt according to the situations. We have to adapt our knowledge according to the patient. So this adaptation is very much required in a physician. The physician who can adapt easily can see all kind of cases and have very good results in all kind of cases. You just have to adapt. That is more important. So the physician certainly requires to know everything in such cases also, but he has much less to inquire into. Don't inquire more into the acute cases. Inquire in a less manner. Less manner means just about this phenomena. Don't go beyond it. They are for the most part spontaneously detailed to him. And this acute cases, they don't require long case takings, because the memory is fresh, phenomena is happening. The patient can tell you about the striking features, how it started, how it is going, about the thermals, about the thirst, about the behavior which has changed in himself. That can be very spontaneously detailed. So don't go past it. But when you have to go past it in a chronic disease, then don't go small. Then go in detail. Take your time, ask about everything until and unless you are very much satisfied that yes, we have got symptoms on which we can prescribe. So we'll finish at 99, because I think from 100 onwards it will be about the epidemic diseases. So we'll talk about it on next Wednesday. Again, please go through these aphorisms. Any questions you feel regarding the case taking, I have told you that we will discuss about Dr. Kant's case taking also. Maybe we'll do it in some later sessions. I will take some points out of, because he has 3 chapters on the examination of the patient. You can also go through it. Please go through it. I will request you that you go through it. There will be more clarity, and we can talk about some points from that part also, because there are every author, every philosopher has written on the case taking. There are their own experiences which they have introduced into the case taking, which is given by these aphorisms which are given by Dr. Hahnemann. Like Dr. Kent introduces one thing into the this part, that never take history from the attendants, out of the attendant, never take the history from an emotional attendant, because they will give you a perception of theirs. For example, if you are taking the husband's history from the wife has a perception of husband, that he is this kind of person, he never listens to me, he does not take me out, he's a very selfish person. So that is a common perception. So if you take that thing and prescribe accordingly, then we will be at a very wrong end of the medicine. So these kind of experiences, they are added. I told you mine, what I have noted. So all these, then you will have your own experiences also when you are taking the case. They are also added. So it is an unending knowledge. All these experiences, they are adding and adding and adding, and they are making so beautiful pictures. So the more we go into it, the more we learn, the more we practice it. After you have taken 50 cases, 100 cases, you start think, getting a grip on it. You start getting a grip on the changes in the case, the way you are taking the case in all those cases, the way you have to mold yourself, the the things which you learn on those cases. Because homeopathy is a very practical science, so the learning has to be very practical. It cannot be theoretical thing. It has to be a practical thing. For example, there is I'll just show you a recent we had a camp. So there was this boy. I'll just show you, and how small things basically uh, can lead to the remedy. Very small thing, but it is a characteristic thing. Just look at his eyes, and we will discuss that about the eyes. Just look at his eyes. इधर देखो. What can you say about his eyes? Sarvel? He's a case of autism. You can write in the chat also whatever you feel about him. Yellow. See the eyes. I think he was around 2.5, 4 years old boy. So what can you feel? What can you see in the eyes? There is one message. Shining smart eyes. Very, very nice. Yes. Can't focus. Yeah, because he's basically the children, they don't have that kind of focuses, and he's basically an autistic child. So the focus is always a problem. Dr. John Cole has written shining smart eyes. Very good. One thing is that very shining eyes. Very shining eyes. Any characteristic of shining basically shows a strong intellect. But then there is much more to the shining part. Yes, I can say that the when we saw it, I was having some of the doctors and students with me. Dr. Rishabh was there, and there were many students also. When I told about this characteristic, I think the video is not doing that much. The video does not show that thing very strongly, But if you can, still it shows it. The color of the eye, they are black eyes, but they were so dark black. I have never seen such dark black eyes. Even it was very difficult to see the iris in those eyes. And it is not because of any kind of opacity, any kind of this thing. He can see well. But the color of the eye was so dark black that even you cannot see the iris through it. So dark black and shiny eyes. These are the eyes of snake remedies. The snake remedies usually have these kind of eyes. Very shining and very dark. Dark discoloration, the darkest of the discoloration, they belong to the uh, not discoloration, even the colors, they belong to the snakes, but not in the communities who are usually dark. Don't take there. But where it is not expected to be. Even the mother had very light eyes. The father does not have that kind of eyes. He had that kind of eyes. We forget, we should have taken the eye this of the mother also for the comparison. So when we were in the camp, I told all of them that, okay, have a look at all the black eyes, even the children, even the adults, and then compare this blackness to those. Usually the children who are suffering from some kind of behavioral disorders, or they have that blackness, but a dull blackness. The blackness is dull and not that dark blackness. So even smallest of the things in the case can tell you about the patient. So this comes when you keep practicing on the case taking, when you know what you have to look for. That is the most important thing. You must know what you are looking for. You're looking for something which is characteristic, which is something different, which is something unique, uncommon, striking thing. And when you get those striking things, those uncommon things, those characteristic things, you are ready for giving a remedy. There is one more message. Doll's eyes. Okay. Yes. Mm, many dolls have those kind of eyes. They are very dark. So with that, I will take your leave. Thank you so much. And if you have, again, if you have any questions, we can talk about them. Just send the questions to either directly to me, to Dr. John Cole, to Dr. Rishabh, anywhere, wherever you feel comfortable. You can send your questions and we can discuss them. Thank you so much, and have a very good night.